Hey guys, welcome back. It's Bible Scribe. I have made some new friends, John and Ann, and this couple has agreed to do an interview, a testimony with me of their experience coming out of the Jehovah's Witness religion, which is not actually a very easy thing to do. I always request for people to do testimonies with me, and I think it does take a lot of courage to do it, to give a testimony of what God's done in your life, where He's brought you. But this is a really interesting testimony. I think there's just a lot here from John and Ann that will ring true to many of us as we listen to them talk about how God led them out of the Jehovah's Witness religion and into their current state in life, where they have kind of a renewed desire to learn and relearn and unlearn things. It echoes true with so much that's in my life, that's a part of my experience, and I think it will with you too. So I tried in this interview just to learn about their experience. This is their story. This is about their experiences. So I think it's very interesting. It's very important that we hear testimonies like this, because you need to understand that all of us have come from different places. And John and Ann are no exception. You may not have come out of Jehovah's Witness, but that's the path God's bringing them through. And so this is just, to me, a very interesting and valuable testimony, a valuable story to learn about other people's experience and see what God's doing in other people's lives all over the world in different religions. I believe He's bringing people together that have a thirst for Him. And I do believe in John and Ann's case that is absolutely true. Now, we all take the time we need to get there. God is very patient with us, and we all have things we have to learn. So, with that, please enjoy this testimony of John and Ann's experience and where He's brought them. It was an absolute pleasure to talk with them and hear from both of them about what God's doing in their lives. So, with that, here's the interview with John and Ann. Well, John and Ann, I just wanted to thank you for giving me the time this evening and spending this time with us. I will be truly honest with you. I know part of your background includes the Jehovah's Witnesses group, and I'm not quite as familiar as I probably could be with that group. So this is going to be educational for me too. And so you have a lot of background with that, and you've come out of that since. So this will be the testimony that you want to give about all of that experience you had. So I just wanted to say thank you, and if y'all are good, we'll go ahead and get started.
Sure. Okay.
All right, great. Yeah, let's just start with the basic question of talking about how you became a Jehovah's Witness. Maybe what role that played in your early lives, and how all that came together for you guys.
Okay. Well, for me, I guess I'll start because I was actually my parents converted to the Jehovah's Witness faith when I was very young, so two. So I was basically born or raised as a Jehovah's Witness.
Mm.
And for me, when I met Ann, she was a witness, and she talked me into a Bible study, and I believed. So I was probably 28 before I became involved with the witnesses, and I had no religious upbringing whatsoever.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so none at all. Your family didn't attend any kind of congregation?
Never. Nothing.
Wow. Okay, great. Wow.
Church at all.
And so, Ann, you said at a very young age, though, you were in the Jehovah's Witnesses. So tell me just a little bit about growing up in the Jehovah's Witness church and how that was as a child, maybe.
Well, it's very involved. It is your whole life. They don't call it church. It's really they call it meetings, and they take place at a Kingdom Hall. And you went to the Kingdom Hall. Well, there was 3 meetings a week, and then plus on the weekends you went into the ministry, which was the door-to-door evangelizing work. So, and then in between that, there was also studies that you were encouraged to do at home personal studies or family studies. So it was very involved. Your level of association was basically restricted to other Jehovah's Witnesses. So having friends outside of the religion was discouraged, especially very close friends. So your social circle was also Jehovah's Witnesses. That is how they wanted you to be.
But I'm sure growing up, that was pretty natural for you, wasn't it? It didn't seem out of the ordinary then, did it?
It didn't, not at all. I mean, that's all I knew. That's all I knew. So, no, it didn't seem out of the ordinary. We felt we were basically told we were special. So we kind of I believed that.
And you mentioned that you guys had to do ministry every weekend, I believe you said. And tell me a little bit about the materials that you guys would use. I would assume you used the Bible, but I don't know of all the writings that they may have had you use as you went out and witnessed to people. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we normally, the Watchtower magazine and the Wake magazine, that's what we would normally use for our ministry. And they had some brochures that, we could use also, and the Bible. They always had the Bible with us.
And what version of the Bible did they have you use, out of curiosity?
It was the New World Translation, so it's their version.
Oh, okay, New World.
That is the one that was very strongly encouraged to use. It's the one that they use at the Kingdom Hall exclusively, but they would sometimes quote from other versions, in particular the King James Version. If you wanted to use that one, you could use it. And they would reference that one as well. But their New World Translation was the one that we used pretty much exclusively, yeah.
Interesting. I need to learn more about the New World Translation. Did you guys recognize anything over the time you were there that is different about that translation? Or is it rather similar to maybe a King James?
Well, the language is a little bit more modern, if you will.
Yeah.
But what sets it apart is the use of the word Jehovah in that translation. So in the King James Version, Jehovah is only used a couple of times. In the New World Translation, it is used almost 7,000 times.
Wow, okay. Now, I'm curious because, John, you mentioned that you met Anne in the church, or while she was a part of the church. Did she bring you in? And I'm kind of curious, if you don't mind telling me, how that affected you guys' relationship as you were courting each other and preparing for marriage, if I got it all right.
So yeah, I met Anne, and she was a Jehovah's Witness, and we really liked each other. And then after a few months of sort of seeing each other, she said she couldn't go on because she's a Jehovah's Witness, and if I would take a Bible study, I would see why we couldn't pursue this relationship. And so I took a Bible study, and I believed what I was learning. I honestly believed it. And so I studied for probably 8 months, and then I became a witness. And then we pursued our relationship after I was baptized.
Okay, great. And at that time, Anne, I'm assuming that if he hadn't made that step, then you probably would have cut it off. Is that true?
Yes, it was definitely a very hard decision to make, but I was prepared to end the relationship. Yeah.
She really shouldn't have been dating me in the first place.
No.
So you were kind of going outside the bounds a little, and so you were going to fix it by coming into the Bible study. That's okay.
Yes, I was, and then I had a fit of conscience.
Yeah.
And that's when we had we did kind of break off for a short while, and then and then John came back and said that he would be willing to look into it. That's how he approached it.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Well, she was obviously worth it, John, so good job.
She was.
Well, we've just celebrated 30 years of marriage, so I guess it was worth it.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. That's great.
Thank you.
So tell me about after you guys met and this stuff kind of happened, and I'm assuming you got married then shortly thereafter. So tell me a little bit about your life in the church together then.
Gee, it was like it was not bad, like you got used. Like for me, I got used to it. I had to change quite a bit. I was pretty close to my mother's family. Like I'm an only child, but my mother's siblings were really close, right? So I was fairly close with my cousins and stuff, and I had to cut out Christmas and cut out all the celebrations, right? So that was hard. We were going to meetings like 3 times a week, and then we were out at the door-to-door ministry. So it kept us busy in the church.
Yeah. We were very involved, and we raised our family. We thought we were doing the right thing. We thought we were pleasing God. That's what we really wanted to do ultimately. And so we thought that following that particular religion would be pleasing to God, that we were doing the right thing. And, we raised our children as Jehovah's Witnesses too, thinking, we were giving them the path to salvation, basically. And all our friends became Jehovah's Witnesses, so we were very involved. And most of my family, my immediate family, not my extended family, just my siblings, my parents, were Jehovah's Witnesses as well. So it just was a very natural, it was our life. I don't know how else to say it, but
yeah, sure. No, it felt like every day. It just felt normal. So John, you said that they required you to stop practicing some kind of traditional Christian-ish holidays, celebrations. You mentioned Christmas. Tell me a little bit about that. Was there more holidays? Was that the only one? And what was the view of the Jehovah's Witness group on that?
It was basically all the holidays, like Easter and Halloween, of course.
Valentine, any of them. The only, and it's not a holiday. It's not really a holiday. You could celebrate your anniversary, but no birthdays, no Halloween, no Christmas, no Easter, no Valentine's Day, no Mother's Day, no Father's Day.
Nothing.
What was their stance on that? Why did they say that you couldn't do that?
Well, I guess if you search the roots of Christmas, it's everything about it's kind of pagan. At least that's what they said, and I still feel that's kind of the same way. And right down from the Christmas tree to even the day of Christ's birth and everything. That's why we didn't celebrate Christmas, and the same with Easter, and all the other celebrations. They all have, like they said, pagan ties. So
right.
We just didn't celebrate them.
Yeah.
Now, we had a hard time the birthday thing, but we did it because we were obedient. At the time. So.
Their reasoning on birthdays is that there's only 2 birthdays mentioned in the Bible, and in both of those, somebody lost their head. So it was never in a positive light a birthday. So they discouraged us from celebrating birthdays, and actually, if you did celebrate them, you would be punished. So It was taken very seriously. Any of the holidays were very serious if you were found it was to be celebrating them.
Well, that to me is interesting. So, obviously a lot of Christians, not just Jehovah's Witnesses, feel that way about a lot of like Christmas, like you said, and the roots of some of the celebrations, they are pagan in some regard. And so I understand that. But it's interesting to me that the church pushed so hard even on birthdays. But I guess what you're telling me is that they tried to back up their position at least with some scripture or an interpretation of scripture. Is that right?
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
Okay. So you're growing as a couple. You're raising your family in the Jehovah's Witness church. So what's kind of the next milestone here for you guys? Was there something that started to perk up your antenna or make you think harder about certain parts of the religion? question things? Was there something that made you start wondering about that kind of thing and just questioning?
There were some things that started to bother me, but the big thing that really bothered me was their teaching on Jesus' words about this generation. So the Jehovah's Witnesses teach that 1914 is the critical year. That is the year that Jesus took the throne in heaven. He waited all that time, took the throne in heaven, and Satan and his demon cohort were cast down to the earth. And that is when trouble started with and World War I was the evidence of that happening. And then there is the 144,000 mentioned in Revelation is the small group that comprise the apostles, the first century Christians, and then a select few that are bought from the earth. And only they know if they are chosen to be one of the 144,000 to rule with Christ in heaven. So 1914, like I said, is that critical year. And to be part of the 144,000, you have to have seen 1914. You have to have lived in that time period, and you had to have recognized what was happening on the earth in 1914. So that's how I can summarize it for you. So for me, growing up as a Jehovah's Witness, that was extremely important because they always said, when Jesus said, this generation will by no means pass away, the Jehovah's Witnesses taught that that generation was the generation that saw 1914. Those anointed to be part of the 144,000 were that generation. And they wouldn't die before Armageddon started. So we were waiting for Armageddon. Like, when I was a young person, a young child, and then in my teens, we were always counting the time. Like, oh, these people would be in their 70s. And then, as I got older, oh my goodness, they would be in their 80s. The end must be coming soon. And then all of a sudden, they changed their teaching on that. And I was very upset by it because I lived my whole life believing that. And then they just said, well, we've had a new understanding because God is revealing things to us, and the light is getting brighter as time goes on. And then, so we just had to accept this new understanding. And then a short time later, like not too many years later, they went back to the original teaching that I had grown up believing.
Well, what year was this that this was happening?
Well, we were together, so it was in the 90s.
It was in the late 90s. We're yeah.
Because these people who would have seen 1914 were really getting old. So, I mean, they had to do something.
Right.
So they changed the teaching, but then they changed it back. And by that point, I was really, like, the foundation was starting to crumble, I was starting to question things.
Because you already were probably questioning because they changed it in the first place, and then when they go back on it, you're like, what is going on?
Yeah, exactly. So that was the big thing for me. For John, it was a bit different because he didn't.
That was a big part too for me because I was a witness for probably 7 or 8 years, and oh, they're getting older, and the end's got to be right around the corner. And anytime you went to an assembly or something, we're on the threshold. That's what they would say from the platform of the new system. Yeah, that was a big part for me too. And then for another part was I saw a lot of hypocrites, a lot of people that who were elders and stuff that were really hypocritical. They didn't follow Bible standards.
In a lot of churches, they're called pastors or reverends, but in the Jehovah's Witness organization, they're referred to as elders. And there's not just one elder overseeing a congregation. There's a group of them. And
Okay.
that was another issue that we had, a very big issue, was that there's a head office in the United States. It's in New York. In Canada, it's in Ontario, a couple of hours away from where we live. But each congregation has their own group of elders who take charge of that congregation. And these elders are not monitored. They basically can do what they want within their own congregation. I mean, not doctrinally teach their own thing, but how they deal with their members, their parishioners,
For discipline.
or discipline their members. They have free reign, pretty much.
So
And
they really didn't, if I'm saying it right, the bishops didn't have any oversight really, but they had oversight over everyone in the congregation.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One thing this makes me wonder, so you were telling me that according to their original rules, and like you said, they probably went back to those original rules, but the 144,000 were the ones that were, I don't know, special, chosen, elect. How did the rest of you receive salvation in the church? Because you guys obviously weren't alive in 1914, right?
So that there's another group, and you may recall from the email that I sent you, where Jesus says, "I have other sheep who are not of this fold." And then in Revelation, there's the mention in Revelation 7 and 9, I believe it is, where they talk about a great crowd. And there's also a scripture where it says, "The meek shall inherit the earth." So they teach that anyone who's not one of the 144,000 is part of that great crowd spoken of in Revelation, and they will inherit the earth and live forever on the earth that will be transformed back into a paradise.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So all this starts to unravel a little bit, as you said, and you're starting to question. So was there some straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, something that caused you to be like, we got to get out? Or how did that kind of come about? How did you make some decisions based on these new understandings you had?
Well, it was kind of, it was death by 1,000 cuts for sure.
It was a slow process.
It was.
We were just getting weaker and weaker spiritually, according to the witnesses, and we just sort of just stopped going.
Well, there was other things that were happening just organizationally that we didn't like, that we didn't agree with. And then I just have to take you back to when I was a teenager. So when I mentioned about how the elders deal with the members of the congregation, they have quite a bit of power over their parishioners, because if you have done something wrong and you may have hurt your relationship with God, then you need the elders to pray for you and to possibly discipline you so that you can go back to having, your prayers are not interrupted, if you will, by your wrongdoing. And that could be a very simple thing. And it depending on the elders in your congregation, some in one congregation may not take it very serious at all, but depending on who you have looking after you, they can take things very, very seriously and discipline you. And I don't know if you know this about the Jehovah's Witness organization, but disfellowshipping is a key feature of that church. And you don't want to be disfellowshipped. You lose your friends and family if you're disfellowshipped. So, and it takes quite a bit to get back. So you're always in fear of that. They hold that over you for sure. And so as a teenager, you do things. You're a little rebellious here and there. And if the elders found out about it, then they encouraged tattling. So if the elders found out about it, you were brought before the elders, and depending on how they, reacted to what you did, you could be disciplined. It didn't have to be disfellowshipping, but it could be that if it was in their eyes bad enough. And I went through a few things as a teenager that were very, very difficult, very difficult. And I didn't like it, but I suffered through it, and I remained in that organization. When our daughter became a teenager, somebody tattled on her about something, and they take a lot of the control out of the parents' hands too. So they wanted to meet with our daughter and discipline her, and we didn't have anything to say about it. And it was like, and I'm not trying to minimize real PTSD, but that's what it felt like to me. I all of a sudden went back to the way I was as a teenager, and I thought, nothing has changed. They still don't deal with things properly. I didn't feel it was scriptural, and it was very hurtful. And so that was a big nail in the coffin for me personally. And I actually, after that situation, I mentally checked out. Our son, who is 6 years younger, they kind of started to attack him a little bit too over something so silly. And then it was basically after that, we left for good.
His haircut.
He didn't like his haircut. They thought his hair was too long.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Oh yeah.
And again, what they say is that some elders are worse than others, and we happen to have an elder who wasn't too stable, and he didn't like our son's haircut. So
yeah.
And that was, we've had enough.
Yeah.
Okay, I can understand that. Yeah.
It sounds stupid,
It does.
but like they're always looking for something.
Yeah. They are in every bit of your life. There is not one little bit of your life that you have to yourself. They meddle in everything.
That's interesting too to me, because that reminds me of some things I've heard about the Church of Scientology a little bit. Not that they're the same, but it is interesting, the correlation.
Yeah. I actually did watch the docu-series on Scientology a few years ago, and it was actually shocking to me when I watched it. I was no longer a witness already at that point, and I could not believe that. I mean, some of it is very different, but then some of it is eerily similar.
Yeah. Now, when you have this stuff happening with your children now, and you've already been questioning, I can understand how all that builds up. So you had to make a decision, though, and that decision to leave the church was consequential. It affected, as you said, it was going to affect friends and family, because everything you did was wrapped up in that organization. So tell me a little bit about that. How did that affect those relationships when you had to leave?
Well, we lost all our friends. We had no
friends. Yeah.
No witness friends ananymore.
Yeah, we were on our own. There's no doubt about it. And I had one of my brothers. I have two brothers, and my one brother had left before me, a few years before we did. So, and then my youngest brother is an elder, actually, in one of the congregations in a different city. So he and his wife, they are remain to this day Jehovah's Witnesses, and our relationship with them is distant, all because of that, for sure.
Yeah.
And then my parents are still Jehovah's Witnesses, but we have a good relationship with them. It's fine. And then our one daughter and her husband and family are still Jehovah's Witnesses, and we have a great relationship with them, thankfully, still as well. We really stay off the topic,
sure.
Just to avoid any, because if you believe, and it's hard to understand unless you're in it, outsiders don't get it, but when you are in it and you believe, like we can't reason with them. They have to come to it on their own. So there's no point in talking about it, really. It just would end up, we could damage the relationship,
right?
Quite frankly.
Right.
Yeah, they would cut us out before they cut the witnesses out.
Yeah. I can understand.
They feel that's their salvation, right? They feel that they would cut us out first before they would cut out the witnesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm just curious because I'm a father and a dad, and how did your kids adjust to this change?
Our son was always already feeling the same way about it as we are, or we were. And our daughter, her husband was raised as a witness also, and his father is an elder, and so she just stayed in as a witness, and I think she believed, but she was never overly zealous, but she still is a witness. But our son was already he had no problem leaving.
Yeah.
We find out now he hated it.
Yeah, he left at the same time as us.
Well, tell me this then. You left the church, and I know, like, thinking about you, John, and you didn't have any religious background really before the Jehovah's Witnesses. So I'm just trying to imagine what that feels like. Maybe you can speak a little to that. What happened with you internally when you left the church as someone who didn't have a religious background beforehand?
I basically went back to the way I used to be, but still believing in God strongly, but not taking it any further than that until, COVID sort of hit, and I'm thinking, whoa, maybe the witnesses had something. But then when the witnesses, the way they reacted through the whole COVID thing, I was done. There's no way. So I'm basically lost right now when it comes to the scriptures and stuff. Like, I'm searching.
Okay.
And
yeah.
we're both searching, and that's how you ended up watching you.
Wow. Great. Well, that's good to hear. I hope I have some positive benefit and you guys get something out of that. That's great. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can understand that perfectly. I guess as a couple, John, you or Ann, what do you feel like you have learned since then? And how long ago are we talking? Are we talking years? Or are we talking months? How long ago was this?
We left the witnesses probably around 2013, 14 time period, and we haven't been back really since. We've been back to a couple memorials, they call them, and that's it. So it'll be 10 years this year for sure.
Yeah. Well, then, Ann, I'll turn that to you then. Have you learned anything since then, or deepened your understanding of God, or gone searching? Tell me just about your journey there.
Yeah, like, I have to agree with John. In 2020, I had kind of, when I left God too. Like, I threw the baby out with the bathwater. I just turned my back on Scripture, on God, on anything to do with spirituality. I just turned my back on it. So for for a number of years, and then in 2020, when things were happening in the world, and then all of a sudden the Scriptures came to mind again. It was like, wow, we're seeing things that the Scriptures talked about. And so I took an interest again. I started to look into the Bible. We actually went to hiking for a weekend, and in the hotel room there was a Gideon Bible, and I read the entire book of Revelation in one night, and just to see what it had to have to say. I think that was in like 2021.
Yeah.
And then I started to watch some YouTube videos and just looking up different things, and I found some interesting channels, and I liked what I was hearing. I was learning some things I never considered before, and I thought it was pretty fascinating, and I shared all of that with John, of course, and he's been slower to kind of come around. He's been reading the Bible again more. Yeah, and I've been really searching the Scriptures and learning these new things, and I'm just fascinated by it. Like, I can't get enough of the things I'm learning now.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean,
I have to say goodbye. I have to go out and help a friend. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you so much for the time you spent with us, John. I really, really appreciate it.
Bye, and all the best.
Thank you very much. All right, Anne, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay. So you say you did a lot of, or are doing still a lot of searching online, looking, learning, which, obviously is a good thing. Just learning is, it's so bad when I see people, they kind of go into a shell and they don't want anything to do with it at all. But I think the thing that so many of us don't realize is that learning really never stops. Even, for someone like myself, I've been a Christian for a very long time, more than 40 years. And I still feel like I'm learning. And if I ever stop learning, I feel like that'll be bad. I guess just after that much time doing it, I've realized that that's a part of this life, is just continuing to learn. So I applaud you in that.
Yeah.
But
and I do feel there's a lot of things that I think they had wrong. First, I think they had wrong. So it's unlearning. Because I knew it from a very young age. That's what I was taught. That's what I believe. So I do have to unlearn things and then come at it with fresh eyes and open mind. And at first, that was a little bit challenging, I have to admit. And it's not that I wanted to believe what I had believed my entire life. Don't get me wrong, but that's all that I knew, and some of it did kind of make sense. But now it's not near as hard. As the farther I get along in this, it's easier for me now to be open-minded about new ideas, new understandings, new teachings, and I find it actually quite exciting. I really enjoy it. And the extra biblical books that we were always discouraged from looking into, such as the Book of Enoch. Now I'm reading it, and I love it. It's so interesting. It makes sense. It supports the Bible. I'm really enjoying that.
That's awesome. So I guess the only other thing I'd be curious about, and this is not to plug anything I'm doing, but I'm curious, how you found me and what your impression is of the Bible Scribe channel so far.
Yeah, so it's interesting how it works. I found somebody on YouTube and I started watching her channel, and then you just find out about these other channels. It's just like honestly a snowball. And I was starting to watch Understanding Conspiracy, Paul's channel. And then he had one of the videos, he was with JT. JT follows JC.
Right.
And then so I was watching his channel, and then you were on his channel. And I really enjoyed that episode. So then I went over to your channel and started to just look at the videos that you had, and they seemed very interesting. So I started to watch a couple of those and really enjoyed them. And then I actually I saw that you had a podcast. I went to your website and you had a podcast, and I know you haven't had anything recently there, but you did have an episode on your reasons for leaving your church, and I really enjoyed that one. So, and then I've just been watching some others, and I have attended a couple of your Sunday morning live streams, and they've been really good too. I wasn't able to attend this morning, but the last couple of weeks I was there, and they're very good. I like how you have an open, you have questions from viewers and then you address them live. I think that's a great format.
Yeah, it works really well. And I think it in a way sets us apart a little bit from the other stuff that's out there. I don't see many other channels doing it quite like we do it. So I really enjoy it. And I know a lot of people, they're there every week. So I've got like a family now. It's great.
Yeah, I've noticed that too. Yeah. Yeah. And they ask great questions.
Yeah.
So, and I really appreciate your humility in addressing the questions. You do a great job, and but you're honest if you're not sure. And I just think it's so nice. It's such a refreshing change from just going to a church and getting preached at. Not that every sermon is bad. I mean, there's great sermons and you learn a lot, but it's just such a nice change. I really like it.
Well, good. Thank you for saying that. So, Anne, you've mentioned that you guys left the Jehovah's Witnesses it doesn't sound like you've joined a church since then. You mentioned the COVID stuff. It kind of messed everybody up, really. But what has changed about your personal views on maybe church or how Christians should get together or that kind of thing, or the way that you are trying to connect with other people?
I mean, I would love to be part of a community. I really would. I really don't have a desire to go back to a church again. Like, we did actually go to a church several weeks ago now. A friend of ours has found this church locally, and he thought that we would really like to go. And so we did go, and I didn't just have a great feeling. It's not that the people weren't nice, but it was it wasn't a Jehovah's Witness church at all, but it still was similar. It felt churchy, and I just didn't feel that it would satisfy my spiritual need. So I don't want to be part of a church like that again. Like I said, I'd love to be part of a community of people who are searching for the truth in the scriptures and to have a close relationship with God. I would love that. But the traditional church setting is not appealing to me.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And in fact, I can say that I've heard that from so many people in the recent years about their experience since COVID changed everything and churches were shutting their doors and they didn't respond very well to that. So now people are like, well, I'll find some other way to connect with my Christian friends, and so that's very understandable. Well, I just want to say to both you, Anne, and your husband John, thank you so much for the time you spent with us today. I just really appreciate y'all doing this. And I know, it sounds like based on where you are, I just want to encourage you. We're all on the journey, and I think you guys, you're headed towards God, and that's what's important. And I'm headed towards God. Maybe I got a head start in this area or that one. And you were in the Jehovah's Witnesses for a while, so now you feel like you're overcoming some of that. But I just want to encourage you. I think that y'all are doing great, and I want to encourage you to keep learning. And if I can be a part of that in any way, and if there's any other ways I can help, if you come up with questions or something, please just let me know, and I will do my best to help you guys. And with that, I guess we'll end the interview.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. So that's the interview with John and Anne and their journey out of Jehovah's Witness to where they are now, where they're still learning. Like all of us, we're all learning. We're trying to get closer to God. That's what every single one of us wants, right? To be closer to the one who made us. And so I think in this case, their story is very powerful for me just to listen to and to realize that God's bringing lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds to the same conclusion, that is, to be closer to Him, to understand Him, to be reconciled to Him through His Son, Jesus Christ. And I think also that I'd like for everyone who sees this video to also understand that desire that they have and that all of us have for community, Christian community. And, I've tried to an extent to build that a little bit online with the Bible Scribe channel. I know that has happened in many places online, many different groups. But I think it's important to hear, and it's important to realize we all need that. So just as I need that and you need that, John and Anne also need that. So I would encourage you, if you've heard this video now, you've heard John and Anne's testimony, and if you are willing, please pray for them. Pray for them. They're on the same journey all of us are. I also would encourage you that if you have any desire to reach out to them, please contact me. You can find my email address on my website on the contact page. And that way you can send a word of encouragement to them. You can tell them you are praying for them. Also, if you just would rather leave a comment in the video for them, encouraging them, telling them you prayed for them, then please do so. Please do so. I think it would just be incredible to see that. And give them a little bit of support as they are on this same journey with all the rest of us, finding their way to God. So I appreciate your time and listening to their testimony. Again, share it with friends. If you know anyone that's a Jehovah's Witness, I would encourage you to share this video with them so they hear what John and Ann's experience was. Maybe get someone else a little further along on the journey. Well, with that, thank you so much for your time, and God bless you. Take care.